Hello, we are going live on cosplay makeup. Hello, this is Miyukiko, also known as Miyu, an artist illustrator from Sydney, and today I'm going to do makeup of Lio Fortia. Beautiful boy. So yeah, just a little brief introduction. Thank you for Japan Foundation for running a series of cosplay videos. So today for me, I'm doing a live stream for the makeup, but yeah, with everything going down, everything has been so, a bit of a downer with all the chaos and everything going on. So it's nice to do something that is a big change of pace, with all the events being cancelled and all that. So I'm going to be cosplaying this beautiful boy right here. And yeah, since I'm wearing the shirt, because the entire cosplay would be a little bit flimsy to do the makeup and all the sleeves and everything like that. So without further ado, we can really start on that. And I will explain as I go along with what kind of things I use, and hope you enjoy and get something a bit out of it, because my makeup for Leo is a little bit different from my usual ones. And whether you use these tips for future kind of cosplays, or like, hey, this might look good for a certain character, go ahead, because yeah, there's things we can pick up from all sorts of things. So here we go. So without further ado, with all my bare face and everything, so yeah. So first of all, we start off with foundation. So this is Cos foundation, and this one is actually the widest one, so it's actually WHO1. So not sure if you can see it, WHO1 here. So it's super wide, and it's actually a lot more paler than my natural skin tone. And the reason for that is because for certain characters, not all the time I use this particular foundation. So it really depends up to your skin tone and what look you're trying to achieve. But for this particular one, so it's really white, as you can see. And you'll see the difference as well, right? And the reason for that is that, I should tie my hair up actually. It's because it gives you a much more paler and pretty boy look, right? So I'm gonna look like a mess right now, but you can see how white it is right now. And I already have my contact lens in because I don't want people to see me poking my eyes out with my fingers, right? It's not exactly something that is very nice to look at. So you are going to have to deal with me and my hair tied up, probably in a hairnet and everything, and looking like a total mess for most of the video. But, it all comes together in the end. And skin toned hairnet here. So for lighter colors, I tend to like to use a more skin tone hairnet as well, because I'm too lazy to tie the top, because I don't want to waste time. But technically you're supposed to tie the top of it, which maybe I should, maybe. But sometimes I get lazy to do that, because when you're in a rush or whatever. And now you're going to deal with me looking bold for the rest of the video. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? But yeah, I already have my earrings in and my contacts. So my contact lens, this one is, which one is it? Early? Yes, Early. So this is the Early pink one. So it's a bit more pinkish. So before I used purplish one, but I thought my pink might show up a bit nicer this time around. So it's quite pinkish reddish kind of thing. Not exactly reddish. The red is much more stronger. So there is that. So I'm just going to put a little bit more of my really white on it. So you can see how the difference in the skin tone already, right? And of course, if you need to cover up like certain blemishes or pimples and things like that using a concealer, then yeah, please do so as well. But yeah, here is my basic kind of bill. So you can really see difference there. And I try not to do too much. Well, this is just a personal kind of thing anyway. So I try not to do too much on the white on like too much on, say, like the eyelids or things like that yet. So I'm just trying to get the difference between the eyes and my skin tone. So it kind of has this, like, you know, when you have like say like BJD, like Dolphys, how they have those kind of like gradient, not really gradient, but you know, the difference between how it's like the features are much more obvious. So by doing that, I'm creating a much more obvious kind of, yeah. Oh my god, my eye bags are like terrible, but I'll cover that up with my pasty white makeup. And yeah, so it just has a much more glowing kind of effect. So you can see I'm actually like really pasty white. Of course, it's not absolutely perfect. So I'm actually using a lighter kind of foundation, a few different ones. This one is a little bit more pinkish. It's still very whitish. So I won't be like exactly like pale, super pale, but I will have something that is much more like blends in nicely, but still has a little bit of tone to it. So is that. So this one, what brand is this? Mitsuyoshi brand. So, but this one I find that works quite nicely as well. That blends in with it. So definitely try what combination works better with your liquid foundation, because of course there's tone differences as well. So there is that. So there is that. Then just a little bit under my eyes, because my dark circles are getting pretty obvious. So there is that. You can see really, really super white. So it's not so obvious when I'm close up here, but when you see the overall, it's super pale. And because I'm checking with my kind of like the screen and checking of that, it's actually kind of hard to do like a really perfect makeup whilst talking and on a small screen compared to the, you know, giant bathroom mirror that I have. So please forgive me if it's not absolutely flawless, but there is that. So I got my basic, oh no, here. I actually have a mirror, a small mirror next to it here, but it's a little bit harder to see compared to here on my phone because the lighting is much more obvious on my phone because I have two lights on each side right there. And if you want it to blend nicer and just not cut off at the head, then try to blend it a little bit more on the neck as well. So it doesn't have to go all the way down, but it just looks a little bit more like natural. So it has that kind of like faded look to it. So there is that. Maybe. Actually, I don't really need to fix the top that much because my fringe covers it anyway. So there is that. So that is the foundation. So you can see super pale like that. But of course, it all comes together as we kind of go. So the next thing, what else is next? Next is I'm going to use we'll actually use an eyeshadow palette for the contouring, but you can tell that like the browns are like so heavily used because that's pretty much what I only use it for. So what I do with that, where is my brushes? Here it is. So using that, let's see what here. So I tend to kind of gravitate towards like the browns and everything because instead of like the contouring powder, well, sometimes it's good to use for say like the cheeks and some certain areas that is a little bit more tone, but sometimes it can be a little bit too orange for me personally. But yeah, so for here, something like this, you can actually really emphasize, say, like the jawline, because I do have one, but because compared to some people, it's not as obvious, I tend to draw that in a little bit more. So with a darker kind of like brown, I draw that a little bit more. So it's a little bit more defined right there, following that. It's not as obvious on camera because of course things don't look as like showy on camera. When makeup in person usually looks really heavy. For some reason in photos, it doesn't look as crazy. And then darker, much darker toners. So usually I use these kind of range, the darker ones as well. So you can see that following along there, just to emphasize that line kind of there, and following along there. So it's just a little bit more defined. So get my mirror again and following along that. Sometimes if I'm really, really like obvious and really want to make like very, very clear, strong line, I use like much more darker colors. For example, if it's like something like JoJo's or whatever, then it'll be like blacks and browns because they have that really mongerish kind of line going on. But yeah, but besides that, I also use the browns for, say, contouring and the face shape and things like that. So here I tend to follow the nose eyebrow to the nose kind of line. I'm not sure if you guys pay attention to like, say, like drawing and digital art and things like that, but when this is going to a little bit of a drawing thing because it is my job, but when you draw characters, the eyebrow kind of follows this kind of line and follows down to the kind of nose. So it's actually something that I do when I draw and I do makeup as well. So it kind of makes that kind of line a little bit more defined. And how much you define the nose is usually depends on the character, because say for someone like Leo, he has quite soft features. I don't want to make it too obvious, but if it's certainly like some characters which has much more sharper, obvious and more defined features, then I would use it. But because his face is quite pretty, then I don't want to do that as much. Besides that, and then the edge of the eyes as well. So that's usually kind of there. So I'm actually going to touch up on that later, because for me, it's just getting the basic of it first before drawing everything else. But the main shades and everything, then I will do afterwards. So there is that. Actually, don't feel like it's dark enough. I feel like I should emphasize it even more. So, because in camera, it doesn't really show up too much, too obviously. So you can see that's much more defined now. And then sometimes I do like a bit on the nose at the bottom here to get that kind of shape. And depending on the character, sometimes I do a little bit underneath the here. Yeah. So it just gives you a bit more of that defined shape. Of course, I haven't done anything to my eyebrows and my eyes and everything yet. So it's a little bit of a still like what is going on, but it will come together. So what next? What next? So I'm going to actually do my eyes first, then I will do my eyebrows and fix that up, because I'll need to conceal it a bit and make it nicer. So I'm actually going to use my liquid eyeliner. Actually use two. So actually this one is pretty old, but it still works really nicely. It's the MAC kind of liquid liner, liquid last liner. There's good and bad things about this one, because it's very strong, it's very black, but it dries kind of a bit slowly. So sometimes I may mess up and it's just like this like smudge on the top of a thing and I'll need to touch up on it. Whereas some other eyeliner, it dries quicker, so it doesn't have that. But I do like the strong defining lines it has. And yeah, so I just hope I do this nicely, because it is a small mirror right here. So I follow along the eyeliner and follow the eye shape. Back in the day, eyeliner used to be super, super heavy. So it would go like, I would cover like half my eyelid, because that was the makeup trend, the really heavy makeup. So if you look at photos in the 2000s and early 2010s or something, that's that really heavy like makeup. But it's a very, very anime look. But nowadays the trend is a bit more softer, so things look more natural, or like the lines of the eyeliner is not as obvious, even though the makeup may be just as heavy, but that part is a little bit different there. So I tend to extend the eyes a bit longer because it just makes it nicer that way. My god, it's so hard to tell from a distance. So a little bit there. And actually, I should mention this earlier, I don't have to draw all the way in for me personally because I actually already have like a little bit of a, yeah, you can see the dark of it right there. It's actually, I actually have a semi-permanent makeup thing, so that's why it saves me time doing the middle part, but I still need to do the extended part right here. And I tend to draw the eye shape, so because for me, I want to have a little bit more defined, that kind of like anime eye. Well, it's not really showing up. Forgot to. Woohoo. So you see how it has that kind of shape, although it's not perfect. So I'll need to fix that up. So you get a little bit more of that. Fix that up a little bit later with a more, with not this one, because this one is a bit more like tricky. Actually, I don't feel like my eyeliner is extended enough, so I'll just do a little bit more obvious right there. Yeah. So you can tell that like after liner, my eye looks a little bit more sharper compared to the one that doesn't. So it has that like visual look. So my eyes and features are actually quite oval and round. So I have to think of ways to make it more like sharper in a way. So I'm going to do the same to this one as well. And here we go. Woo! I'm surprised I haven't like messed up majorly yet as I talk and do this. So there is that. Hope everyone is staying safe with everything going on, and you know, it's been a crazy year for everyone with so many things being cancelled and so many cosplay plans and other things being postponed. Definitely for me, I've been really quiet for the past like half a year, literally. It does get a little bit lonely, you know, like you don't get to see your cosplay and artist friends enough, and then now you're like, oh, I guess I'll see you like next year. So there is that right there. So it's not blending quite nicely yet, so just going to join it up a little bit more and squint a little bit there. So there is that kind of there. So now I have that going on, and I'm not going to draw the bottom with the liquid eyeliner because it actually depends, but for a more softer look, for more like natural-ish look, I like to use a more pencil based instead because it blends out much nicer. Back then, for more like sharper eyes, I usually do all the way around, so it has that like boxy, it has that like really super sharp. But because Lio is quite pretty, he has like eyelashes and everything, so that's why I try to do a little bit more softer. So I'm going to use my, maybe not black, maybe brown. Yes, brown. I use brown. So I use the brown one, so then it's a bit nicer. So actually, yeah, it's actually an eyebrow pencil or eyeliner. So whatever works, you know. Whatever just looks good on your face. So let's just see. Follow around that kind of, yeah. Now just leave it up to halfway so far. And I'll do a little bit on that side too. So it's much more obvious right now. So it's much more, the lines are quite strong, but I'm going to kind of make it a bit more blended out. Well, I'll use brown as well to kind of make it fade a little bit more. And I think with those kind of more naturalish or like pastelish makeup, it's just a matter of making everything look more faded right there. And much more like natural looking. Oof, you can see how the eyeliner that I mentioned, that when I blink, it can smudge. Can do that a little bit. So that's a downfall of this particular liquid eyeliner we use. But it's not too bad, so I can just fade it out a little bit and blend that. So not a huge mistake yet. Thank goodness. But yeah, so with the same thing, pencil, my vocabularies have gone out the window, as you can tell, and I use that to draw that mock-up eye crease, double eyelid. Yes, I actually have a natural double eyelid, so you can see, but it's actually kind of comes in like really closely, really halfway almost. So when I do my eyeliner, it kind of covers over that. And everyone's different. Some people are born naturally with it. Some people like me has that half double eyelid thing, and it covers it when I do my eyeliner. And then some people are just naturally just don't have it. So either way, you can actually, for people who don't, or like have half like which covers it as well, or even if you want more your double eyelid to be more defined, or like the lines a little bit stronger, then just draw it in, you know. And to draw it in, you just do like parallel to your own eye. So I like to do it with like a brown or a black eyeliner, pen, pencil, whichever you think looks nicer that way. So just follow along with that. You kind of see that. Of course, it's not blended that nicely. It's just making sure everything is there. God, it's a bit wonky, so thank God, at least for this kind of like pencil, eyebrow pencil, I can rub it and fade it and make it a little bit more nicer, so then it's not as wonky, right? Woohoo! So we have our fake double eyelids pretty much, and sometimes I like to define certain areas of it as well. So example, if you want to have a little bit more of a shape, then for example, these creases, these lines right here would be much more darker, much more obvious, and much more stronger. So you have that kind of like mock-up shadow going on. So right there, so you have that like mock-up right there. Try to make those edges like fade off a little bit so it's not as strong. And there is that. But sometimes I do this as well, depending on how you may feel. I use a darker eyebrow like pen, no, yes, eyeliner, no, yes. I'm losing my words. Where is my eyeliner? Yes. To kind of draw that. So you see that line is a little bit more obvious. It's a little bit darker. There. So then you can see that like it's clearly very like much more obvious compared to here. Let's just see. It's so hard to see the mirror and the camera and all that, but here we go. So there is that. Now for the fun-ish part. So the fun-ish part is making it actually look pretty and all that. But before I do that, actually, I'll need to fix up my eyebrows. So depending on your eyebrows, like me, it's not super dark, but of course, after I put my like super pale makeup, my eyebrows became like so much darker. I'm going to conceal it a little bit because it's not that neat after I do that. So just because for me, for Lio's eyebrows, it's not too far off from what I want. So for me, it's just mostly like making it lighter and making it like more softer for that. But for if you have like very prominent eyebrows that you feel like wouldn't work for your character, you may need to conceal your eyebrows and redraw that. So even if you want to lighten up your eyebrows, you can just use a bit of concealer and soften that so it's not as dark, so you don't have to cover everything. But say like for these kind of edges, then I will need to do that. And then blend a little bit more. Not that you'll see it when I put the wig on anyway, but you know, for the sake of doing it. That. So I tend to actually put a little bit concealer still, even if I use my own eyebrows as a base, for along the top line, like right here, and then a lot right here. So it kind of follows along with that. Of course, I'm not blending it nicely right now. It's just defining that. So then it has that kind of, it catches light. So it's kind of follows that face shape right there. There. So then sometimes I'll need to touch up on a little bit as well, because sometimes I overdo it and then it's not really blending that nicely. So it's like that. It's a bit more nicer, just a tad nicer. So there is that. And because the foundation I use is little bit more. Where did my stuff go? Oh well, good enough. Yeah. Of course, we still have yet to go, but you can see how that the shape is coming together much more obviously. Woohoo. Let me just do that. A little bit more. And like that. So you see my super pale face contrasting with that kind of brownish edges. But yeah. So fun part, here we go. So fun part is actually doing all the pretty little like shiny parts and very defining those kind of features. And first of all, I still need to finish up on the eyes because, whoop, that was loud. Because here I tend to make it a bit more brown with my shadow palette, and a little bit more, sometimes even a bit more red as well. So sometimes I use like these kind of reds, even though it looks really dry, but if you blend it in with like the brown, then it looks a little bit more natural, because things just look more better with a little bit more color. And you see that in drawing as well, when you see like certain areas such as the eyes, the nose and the mouth, those kind of areas which are thinner and has more red blood vessels and things showing, which just shows a little bit more of a little red. It's not glaringly obvious, so it's not like, even though I'm using a red, it's not super obvious, but it has a bit more like natural kind of look to it. So it is kind of like that. So I tend to do that in the corners as well. So there is that. Woohoo. Phew. So far so good, huh? So I hope that somewhat interesting, but the fun and the creative part starts about here. Next up is actually shining kind of palette. Let me just get rid of this. And I'm actually using Hanan Baz's gave me their kind of like really sparkly palette. So it is their the flower nose palette that they gave me last year. Yes, so it's all of them are very shiny. They're all actually really good because you have the reddish tones, the goldish tones, and the white kind of tones, and you can do a really nice blend of those. So I use the reddish ones and these kind of ones more on the outer one, and the white part, right shimmer parts in the middle, so it gives you that dimension to it. So I hope that shows up a little bit, but see a little bit more right there. Oh my gosh, of course it tends to look better in person as well than on camera. You can barely see it, but oh yeah, you can see kind of see it. So there is that there. Woohoo. Talking and makeup doing the same time is not as easy as I think. Well, really. In this one, I'm using the goldish tones, so more here. Oh yeah, you can see a little bit how it's kind of faded a bit more in. Because Lio is quite pretty, so, and he has those like really pretty lashes. And plus he's so sparkly as well, so I thought it might look nicer for him to have that. Yeah, a little bit more obvious. I don't want to make his makeup like too glaringly like makeup obvious. It's more like a subtle kind of like pretty anime look as well. So let me just that. And so I've done the reddish ones and the goldish ones, and now the whitish ones here right in the middle. So you can see that really, now the white is much more obvious. It's much more shimmery. So much in the middle there. So it kind of mocks up that kind of like highlight. Right there. Woohoo. Yeet. Yeah. Now we have the eyes like much more popping out a lot more. Right there. So so now we have the eyes popping out a little bit more, and there. And before I put on my fake eyelashes, actually, because I do put eyelashes for this specifically, but I don't use the really black ones because I felt for him specifically it might be a bit too strong, since his eyelashes in the actual anime and like a movie and everything, it's actually the same-ish color as his hair. Usually for like say like white silver haired characters, I use like white mascara or like things like that, but it's not exactly white, it's like that his hair tone, so I didn't want to use something that light, so I used a brown what is it, eyelash. Yes, that's the word, eyelash. But before I put that on, I'm gonna use this, the auto gel eyeliner. So this is a more like pinkish, sorry, so like dirty, but that's besides the point. But yeah, for this one I tend to use around the corners of the eyes to give it that pinkish kind of look. It actually looks, it's very subtle, but it makes a huge difference overall when you put it on. So I tend to do that around the edge of my eye. Not sure if you can see it. Oh yeah, you can see it. See how it's much more like reddish here, like more pinkish. So it kind of gives you that like more dimensionality to it, a much more pastel look. Sometimes I might use, depending on certain characters, for example, if you're doing like female characters and you want the eyes to look really bigger, then you'll use like white as well, a little bit on the bottom to give you like a bit more of that illusion of that like whiteness in the eye, so it makes your eyes like super big. But because we're doing a more like pastel-y kind of look, then this would make it look just a little bit more like pinkish. But yeah, rather than just like plain black or like plain brown right there. So it has a little bit more of that dimension right there. Woohoo! Yeah, we're going good, man. So hope that is much more obvious right there. So currently looking like this. Still bold, still whatever, but it'll be soon be fixed soon. So that is that. And now should be, let me just check. Just need to touch up a little bit because after all that makeup and after all that like talking, I think I need to fix up some of the lines again just to make it a little bit more. And of course, because everyone's face shape and eyes and a little bit is different, so take what you think would work for you, or like, hey, that might look nice and that might whatever. But you can tell that the white eyeshadow, yes, word's gone. But the eyeshadow, it catches that light much better in after putting it on. So everything is just like after it puts on together, it makes more sense like that. That contrast and that fading and that blending and such. So next up is the eyelash that I was talking about. So not sure if you can see it properly since eyelashes are very small, so I'll show it. So it's a brownish eyelash. I can tell the tips are white. It's because I use a white mascara on the end of that, because as I mentioned earlier, for silver white-haired kind of characters that want white eyelashes, I usually actually just do it on my like I actually don't use eyelashes, fake eyelashes. I actually just do it on my eyelashes because I do have eyelashes, but my eyelashes are very thin, so it doesn't really look like it's very obvious usually. But if I use mascara, it's much more obvious. But for Leo, because I want him to have that more like natural pretty look, I'm using a brown kind of eyelash right here. So it's very obviously brown, it's not black. And then I use the white-ish mascara to do the ends of it just a little bit, so then it just looks a little bit lighter. And because his eyelashes and hair is quite light colored as well, so I use that. Yeah, and it actually looks quite nice. So if you're saying you're doing, say, like Lolita kind of look that has that like softish kind of look, that would work really nicely as well, because sometimes black is a bit too jarring. If your rest of it, you want a more like softer kind of like makeup or more naturally looking face, yes. Which is very different from the makeup that was popular back in the 2000s and 2010s, because back then it was focused on more like intense and like really dark and like makeup and everything. So that was the good old visual K's, you know? Visual K days. So let me just, fun part, not really. Did I get it in one go? No, not really. Oh no. So I wish I could do it in one go. Sometimes it can be a bit fiddly. Then eyelash, sometimes it falls as well, so it's not so obvious on camera, but you can tell that it's there. Yeah, like if I do this, then you'll see how it stands out from my eyeliner a little bit, and you can see clearly how the eyelashes come out. So it's not as white, but you can clearly see there's something there. Now do the other side as well. So another, yeah, this one you can see the tips a little bit more white there. So it kind of has that like gradient kind of look to it. Yeah. And I think from last time, I feel like, because I used this like once or twice, like all of like my eyeshadow glitter has kind of gotten onto it, so even my eyelashes are like glittery now. Woohoo! So there is that. Bold Leo. Yeah. So now that I have my two top, like if I squint, then you can see it more obvious right there. Yeah. Woohoo! If I squint, right? And then same thing for the bottom ones. I have bottom lashes because he does have like eyelashes on the bottom. So these are much more shorter and specific for the bottom ones. So yeah, that one as well is also brownish, light brown. So I'm sure you can find something similar like that online because I got mine online too. So fiddly parts again. Woohoo. Eyelashes is always so fiddly, and then they also fall off during the con sometimes, so then you always have to like make sure you bring your eyelash glue in case your eyelashes fall off. That is a little bit. So these ones I tend to follow with the middle and then I go out a bit. Nope, it's not listening to me. My gosh, how do I do this? It's been a long time. So that one, should wait till it dries. No, nope. Yeah, little bit more obvious. Yeah, it's not a whole lot, but it's kind of like the little things that add to it. So in like photos or like in cons far away, it's not as obvious, but in close up, then it looks really nice. So there is that. I forgot how long it takes to do makeup. It's been a while, but actually Leo's makeup doesn't really take long as like some of like the really like strong makeup such as no, like much more defined eyes and things like that, because I don't have to spend too much time doing the eyeliner nowadays for those ones, and for some reason I just suit those ones better. So it really depends on the characters. But down, up. My gosh, I cannot see. Does it work? Nope. Yes, nope. Stay. Usually I'm a lot closer to the mirror, so it's a bit obvious, but now I'm like, is it there? Is it there? Yes, it is there. Yes. So we'll try. So there is that. Whew. So now we have most of my makeup done right here, and because sometimes it's like things makeup like look nice when you put on, but then sometimes like after you put on the wig and put on certain things, you're like, oh, I need to touch up on certain parts. So that kind of happens. So I just need to blend in certain things again. And as you can see, I haven't done anything with actually my lips or mouth. I might sometimes at the end I will do a little bit of a lip gloss or certain things, but I usually, for this kind of pale makeup, I actually don't really do the mouth makeup much, because say like Chinese or Korean like pop stars, they do this really pale, like why does the lip, like their mouth and lips look so red? It's because when you do really pale makeup, the redness just stays, so the contrast is much more. So my previous skin tone without makeup and everything, it's not as obvious, it's not as pinkish, but because of that kind of contrast and my pale more less saturated kind of look, get much more out there. So I actually don't have to do too much to it. So that's kind of thing. That's the thing with that. What else do I need to do? Okay. Oh yes. Before I put the wig on and fix up, or maybe I might need to do some touch-ups, say like the eyebrows or like certain things like that to make sure it looks more natural, is sometimes I do use like the face tape. So that is, some people use it for the face, sometimes you use it for the eyes to get a certain shape. Some people don't need it, some people do. It really depends on your personal face and what you're trying to achieve. But for me personally, I have a lot of fat on my cheeks, so it actually makes a lot of difference. So for example, if I do this, you can see my face is actually quite oval. It's not like chubby, but I can do this, and you can see how it has that, like, that makes a lot of difference, right? Compared to I don't. And it has more, and it gets rid of some of like the face fat like lines, and it's much more like that. So that's why I do that for certain ones as well. Some people it makes a huge difference, some people it doesn't. So it really depends on the individual as well. So I do that mostly for male characters because male characters, but for female characters I really do that. So there is that. And it helps you make the eyes a look more sharper too. So you can see that you can see the difference between here and a little bit here. So there is that. And I'll do this one as well. And thing about like face taping and thing is that make sure you buy tape for skin, or like cosplay tape, or like medical tape. Don't use just any regular tape, because you don't really know what it can do over time. Because even if I'm, for me, doing something as safe as this, sometimes if you sweat a lot, it wrecks the adhesive on a thing. And sometimes it's rarely for this, but say like on the body or certain things, like there's certain cases which I have ripped off some skin, and the scarring takes like a long time to heal. So even if I'm careful, it may happen. So try not to wear it for too long, or in very hot conditions. Or if your skin is just sensitive, try and find tape that is more for sensitive skin or things like that. So even though I'm using really sensitive skin, I still have to be wary of it, like how much I do and how much I use as well for that. And now for, yeah, so you can see my eyes are a little bit more like sharper, my jawline's more like, yeah, beautiful. And now for my wig, right? So here's two-tone cut of wig. Funny enough, this is a little extra tip that I do for some certain wigs and some certain hairstyles as well, because Leo has a very puffy hair, as you can tell, and it's very puffy at the top. So when I first put the wig on, it lacked a little bit of that extra kind of like volume, right? It was a little bit more flat. So what I kind of do in some, because you know how some anime characters, they have that like really rounded puffy look, and it's not like they have a lot of hair, it's just like puffier. So what I usually do for certain things like that is I actually shove hair nets. It's a very makeshift kind of thing. I shove hair nets on like the kind of how to give it that kind of volume, because when you sometimes when you hairspray and try and get it, it looks too artificial. It looks too like hairspray and looks too like whatever. And sometimes you might, and you don't, for me, I don't want to put like extra hair wefts or like make it like so heavy as well. And so I put that in and give it that puffier look. So I'm going to look like a mess for a little bit, but let me just fix my hair. Let me just fix my wig. So there, see what I mean? It has that little like more puffy. If it didn't, it'll be more like flat, right? So it just adds a little bit more to that. So my wig is a mess, as you can tell. So just need to fix that up and make sure that is tucked in properly. And then here, and then the earrings right there. So make sure everything is tucked in. If everything isn't like tucked in, like you have long hair and it's hard to tuck everything in, then definitely use some like, you know, bobby pins and make sure to kind of like that. So there is that. Actually not too bad. And then, oh my god, it's a mess. It is a mess. What varnish. Yeah. So that's Leo's makeup right here. Of course, sometimes after you do the kind of like face taping or like whatever, you don't want the tape to show as much, you can tape down, say like use double-sided tape to kind of stick your wig to your face. Sometimes it looks good, but sometimes it might be a bit too like stuck a bit too much. So I like Leo's hair a little bit more like fluffier, so I try to do kind of that a little bit more, make it a little bit more out, a bit more right there. Oh my gosh, what is it doing? Oh, it's flipped under. So there is that. So do I need to touch up anything? Should be, overall it should be pretty much like that. Yeah, but of course over the cons and over like shoulder shoots, you might need to touch up say like foundation because things rub off. So especially for me, look at me and my lack of like, obviously I never sleep enough because working as illustrator, you stay up till like what, like 3 AM doing your work. But here is the general look of my makeup. So you can see how close up it's a little bit more obvious right there. And of course my lighting isn't right directly, so you wouldn't see the directness of it, but it has that kind of like faded, more natural look and towards that. And of course, after sometimes you do your makeup, you may touch up on certain eyebrows and stuff. For wearing color contacts, it really depends on... so any tips for wearing color contacts? So for color contacts, it really depends on the character and the feel you're going for, because some characters have really super bright eyes. So for that, I really want something that is really stands out. So Airly is really good for those kind of contacts that really stick out because they're very bright on Asian eyes. So because Asian eyes, my eyes are quite like brown, I want something for like blues and greens. Not a lot of contact lenses show up quite nicely, but say for Airly, they show up really well. So this one is Airly as well. Any makeup brands you recommend? So I do really love Cos's foundation, even though it's a bit hard and probably a little bit more expensive to find ways to purchase it online. But it does have a really good range of tones, and especially if you're doing more like this kind of like pale-ish makeup, then it works really nicely, because even though it is white, like technically it's the whitest of white, but it still blends quite nicely with the more foundation tones, which are a little bit more like pinkish, and it's not pure white. Actually, I do use this for pure white as well, but that's for other things. But it is quite versatile. And other than that, it's just really testing to see what works with you as well, because sometimes like I may do an eyeliner and because I do use MAC's Liquid-Lash eyeliner, but I'm open to try new ones as well, because as I said, sometimes the line is really strong, and the good thing about it is that it stays for a long time. But then say like it's not exactly quite easy to draw on like very fine detail because it takes a while to dry. So if I do say like if I use this for the kind of the double eyelid thing, there's a huge risk of I just like smudge it like whatever. So I rather use a thinner eyeliner pen for that. So it's just a mix and match to see what may work with you as well. And I'm very open to try. For example, even though I use the really pale like Cos kind of makeup, I also use other brands or other things for like maybe certain skin tones works better for like different tones as well. So more natural ones and more like ones that cover blemishes really well. Some certain foundations and liquid foundations, they cover certain blemishes and look really well. Like it just looks absolutely flawless. And those ones I use a different kind of thing as well. But for this one, clearly it has that like more Dolphy-like kind of look to it, the way I do his kind of makeup. So there's that. But yeah, I hope that kind of answered the questions. And it's a little, I didn't have a brush here, so it's still a little bit like, well, it's still a tad messy, but there is that. And of course, wig framing helps you get the certain face shape a lot. So if it works for like to bring in the wig a little bit closer, or like shape it a little bit more, then it really helps. So yeah, hope through all my fumbling and stumbling that it all made a lot of sense. I hope that there is something that you found informative or something that you can take for newer cosplays and try out. But yeah, definitely recommend some shiny kind of palettes, such as like, you know, flower nose, like those kind of palettes to give you a more like pastel-y, like shimmering kind of look. It doesn't really stand out very jarringly, but it looks pleasing to the eye. Like it comes together nicely. So yeah, and that should pretty much it. So thank you, and hope you guys all have very lovely weekend, and hope to see you at future events and cons and, you know, all that. But, you know, stay safe and hope you enjoy. See you next time. Bye bye. Thank you. So how do I close this now?